grandson have a name yet?
Asha.
Daughter, granddaughter?
I thought it was a boy.
No.
So it was a daughter.
Yeah, daughter.
Okay. Prabhupada says that the father has a special spot in his heart for a nice daughter.
Look at that smile on.
Thank you very much. Gandhari had 100 sons.
Yeah, one
And
daughter.
she wanted one daughter, at least one daughter.
But
So her name is Asha? Not sure.
my mother.
That's the name of your mother?
Yeah.
That's nice.
Incarnation.
Maybe. You never know.
You know.
I have the same name as my father and my grandfather. And I hope I'm not a reincarnation of them. Although my grandfather was dying of a type of cancer that goes up your spine, and they had so many operations. He had his foot hacked off. He had part of his leg hacked off. He had one of those bags because he'd been through so many things. And I was a fired up brahmachari. I went to see him, and I read him the section where Vidura is speaking to Dhritarashtra, that you're blind, you're losing your teeth, you're living like a dog on the scraps of others. You know, I mean, because he's trying to pull his brother out of that entanglement, you know. So I thought, oh, well, that'll be a good section to read. So I was reading it to my grandfather. He was in the hospital by that time, in bed, hooked up to all kinds of stuff. And my grandmother came in. I didn't hear her. And she was listening to me read to him. And they were all telling him, oh, you know, this operation, that operation, we whack this out, you're going to get better, we do this, you know, we'll give you another 3 years, all that stuff, you know. And they're just chopping him up. So I'm reading it, laying into him, you're living like, you know, so many things. So I didn't hear her come in. We're in the hospital room. She freaks and goes and gets my father. And my father he was pretty energetic still in those days. He came and he just grabbed me by the shoulder from behind. Said, what are you, you know? And my grandfather, to his credit, said, stop, let him read. He's the only one who's telling me the truth. Which I thought, of course my grandmother never really got over it, but so what? At least he heard Bhagavatam before he shoveled off his mortal coil. Okay, Ram, you start and I'll follow, but let's not start too high. Jai Radha Madhava Kunda Bihari Go my speed. Jai Radha Madhava Kunda Bihari Gopijana Balaba Girivanadari Gopijana Balaba Girivanadari Jasodanandana Brajajanaranjana Jasodanandana Brajajanaranjana Chamunatiravanachari Jamunatiravanachari Jayararam Madhava Kunjabehari Gopijana Balaba Girivanadari Jasodanandana Janaranjana Chamunatiravanachari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Boom Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Boom Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Jayararam Madhava Kunjabehari Jayararam Madhava Kunjabehari Jai Radha Madhava Kunda Bihari. O Premanandi. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Pidi Vajakacharya Sathiti Shisham. His Divine Grace Abhajaran Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Jagaguru Srila Prabhupada Ki. Anantakoda Vaishnavinda Ki. Namchar Srila Haridas Thakur Ki. Prem Shri Gaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Go Gopinath Shama Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki. Vrindavan Dham Ki. Mathura Dham Ki. Dwarka Dham Ki. Navadvip Dham Ki. Jagannathpuri Dham Ki. Chumanamai Ki. Gangamai Ki. Tulsi Maharani Ki. Bhakti Devi Ki. Sambheda Bhakti Vinda Ki. Srila Prabhupada Ki. Say Radha Giridhari Ki. Shri Krishna Sankirtana Jaga Ki. Go Premanande. All glories of the assembled devotees. All glories of the assembled devotees. All glories of the assembled devotees. All glories of the divine Lurasita Shri Shri Guru and Gauranga. Before we get started, I should mention that one of the great heroes of the ISKCON movement, Indradumna Maharaj, who sailed all the way up the Amazon River and has opened the preaching in Mongolia, and he's just a very brave and intrepid traveler in the service of Prabhupada. He's a wonderful, wonderful, well, you guys have seen him in Laguna Beach. He'll appear sometime. He's a wonderful devotee. He has been arrested in Russia. He's been visiting Russia since the early days. If there's danger and risk, but a ripe audience, Indradumna Maharaj will be there. So he had a bona fide visa for missionary activities, everything. He didn't violate anything, but somehow or other, he got into the country and he was at a program, and just like the movies, the KGB or whatever they're called now, showed up and hauled him off. So he's in detention, and right now, or this morning, it was his actual case, at least the first day of his trial. And I don't have any more details. What's he being, sedition? I don't know what they're, but we'll find out. But you can all offer some prayers to Lord Nrsingadev, because we'll see how it all, probably the worst thing they'll do is harass him and keep him in the... There was a devotee, and we're off the track, but it's okay. He was a professor in Azerbaijan under the Soviet Union, and he became a devotee. It's a true story. He became a devotee. So he was a professor, and he thought, well, let me teach my students. He's teaching religions or, philosophy or whatever he was doing. And so he started teaching Bhagavad Gita. And the KGB came, said, you can't teach that opiate of the people in our workers' paradise. You can't do that. They actually told people, they put up the Berlin Wall. People were, they were losing. It was a huge brain drain from the Soviet Union. Everyone was fleeing who could. And so, but they actually told the people that all those people, the capitalists, want to come into our workers' paradise. And it'll, like, too many people will sink a boat. So we've got to put the wall up to keep them from flooding our workers' paradise. So they told, you can't do it. or we'll fire you. He said, what to do? These are young people, and they've come forward. And, I have a chance. I can't just feed them poison. I'm not going to do it. So he kept teaching Bhagavad Gita. They fired him. He thought, it's actually Krishna's mercy. Because, I've got to teach, this one and that philosophy, and Kant and Descartes and this one and Schopenhauer and this. I got to shovel all this garbage on these kids. I can just, at home, I'll just teach Bhagavad Gita. I'll teach Chaitanya Charitamrita. He started giving classes at home. Students were coming. And a lot of it was going on by barter system. One of the students was a dentist, another one, had a farm, and this one. And everything was going on. They were supplying him milk and medical care, and, everything was going on. KGB, you can't do that in the workers' paradise. So he thought, well, what to do? They said, we're going to throw you in jail. He didn't stop. They threw him in jail. He thought, at home, those were students, and they're all young, and they're at the apex of life, and they're enjoying, but people in prison, they're suffering. They really understand that this world is phantasmagoria. This is Krishna's mercy. He continued preaching in jail. They said, hey, you don't stop. We're going to throw you into the gulag. We're sending you off to Siberia. He didn't stop. They shipped him off to Siberia. He thought, actually, he said, in the common jail, you got muggers and thieves, and it's kind of a low-class audience, generally speaking, So, but in the gulag, in the Soviet, Siberian penal system, these are, what are prisoners of conscience? These are, political people and, religious. Christians wouldn't give it up, So these are people of character. He said, this is a better audience, Krishna's mercy. Finally, they told him, you don't stop. No more cigarettes, no more meat, no more vodka. They thought that'll break him. He wasn't taking those things anyway. He was just bartering them. He'd give them away for an apple or something, But, and he was only in, I can say only, but you can even, one day in that place is torture. But he was in for about 5 years. And then they, you have a sentence, and then they let you out. So the thing is, and there were people that had been in for 30 years, but they only had 1 year left. There was the population was in flux with people coming and going. And in the 5 years that he preached, and you ever, a dandelion, they grow in the grass and you blow them and all the seeds blow. He was like that because people from all over the Soviet Union were coming through, and he met. What was his name? He's passed away now, but he was, when he got out of jail, he became the first head of the Russian language BBT. So and he spread Krishna consciousness from being in Siberian jail all over the world. I mean, all over the Soviet Union. So a lot of heroes in Russia. So Indradumna Maharaj is locked up. And I'm sure that he's preaching, but we should offer prayers, and I'll keep you posted, because it's not a pleasant situation. It's really rough. Okay. Indradumna Maharaj ki jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Sankarshan, can you get me the book? I'm going to use the book. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Krishna Sadamo Bhagate Dhammikena Dibi Saha Kalanda Sadashamesha Purana Ko Nidodita Narayana Namaskritcha Naram Chaivam Narottama Devim Sarasatim Vyasam Tato Jaya Mudirayat. Bhagavatam is Vrinda's son, is arisen just after the departure of Lord Krishna, accompanied with knowledge, religion, etc. Persons who have lost their vision to the dense darkness age of Kali shall get light out of this Purana. Before beginning our study of the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, did I say that? We should first offer respects to the personality of God in Narayan, the Narayan Rishi, the supremmost human being, the goddess of learning, Mother Saraswati, the author of Srila Vyasadeva, and my spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada. So we are reading the last few verses in Vaman Leela. Demigods regain the heavenly planets. And yesterday was 29, and today we're going to do 30 and chant 31. So without a purport is text 30. If one hears about the uncommon activities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in his various incarnations, such a person is certainly elevated through the higher planetary systems or even brought home back to Godhead. Pretty good deal if you ask me. So, 31. Kriyamani Karmadidam. Yeah, Karmanidam Daive Pitre Ta Manushe Yatra Yatranu Krityeta Tat Tesham Sukritam Vidu Kriyamane Karmanidam Davai Pitre Tamanuse Yatra Yatra Nukrityeta Tate Sam Sukrit Vidu Kritam Asne Karmanidam Daive Pitre Tatmanuse Yatra Yatra Nukirtyeta Tate Sham Sukrit Hare Krishna Tate Sam Sukritam Vidu Sukritam Vidu Kriyamane Karmanidam Daiva Pitre Tamanuse Yatra Yatra Nukirtyeta Tate Sham Sukritam Vidu Kriyamane Karmanidam Daiva Pitre Tamanuse Yatra Yatra Nukrityeta Tate Sam Sukritam Vidu Kriyamani Karmanidam Daive Pitre Tamanuse Yatra Yatra Nukirtyeta Tate Sham Sukritam Vidu Kriyamane Karmanidam Daive Pitre Tamanuse Yatra Yatra Nukirtyeta Tate Sham Sukritam Vidu Vaishnavis Kriyamani Karmanidam Daiva Pitre Tamanuse Yatra Yatra Nukirteta Tattesham Sukritam Vidu. Alrighty. Priyamani, upon the performance. Karmani, of a ritualistic ceremony. Idam, this description of the characteristics of Vamanadev. Daive, to please the demigods. Pitre, or to please the forefathers, as in a Shraddha ceremony. Now, a Shraddha ceremony, just as, you offer to your forefathers, if your parents have passed away, your grandparents. And Jayapatakam, it's just because it's such a nice phrase, he calls it a cosmic karmic care package. That wherever your parents may be or grandparents, maybe they made some misdeeds. I was talking about my grandfather. He was the prime California distributor of Armour meat packing company. Yeah, so we can imagine what his karma is. So, but he heard Bhagavatam. So, if they're in some miserable position, wherever they are, you perform the Shraddha ceremony and you offer them prasadam, and wherever they are, it's like a get-out-of-jail card free. So, I just like that saying, cosmic karmic care package. You just, boom, arrives wherever you are and you get... Huh? Jayapatakamash, yeah. Okay, where are we? Oh, the word for word. And we said, I'll find it, just give me a moment. Yatra. Yeah? Why not? I think we're before. We're Manuse. Just, I can only process so much. Manuse, for the pleasure of human society, as in marriage. Yatra, wherever. Yatra, whenever. Anukirtyeta, as described. Tat, that. Te sham, for them. Sukritam, auspicious. Vidu, everyone should understand. Translation. Wherever the activities of Vamanadev are described in the course of a ritualistic ceremony, whether the ceremony is performed to please the demigods, to please one's forefathers in Pitri Loka, or to celebrate a social event like a marriage, that ceremony should be understood as extremely auspicious. Also, you say, whenever the activities of Vamanadev are described in the course of a ritualistic ceremony, whether the ceremony be performed to please the demigods, to please one's forefathers in Pitri Loka, or to celebrate a social event like a marriage. That ceremony should be understood to be extremely auspicious. And Srila Prabhupada's purport and the last purport of this chapter. There are three kinds of ceremonies, specifically. Ceremonies to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead or the demigods. Those performed for social celebrations like marriages and birthdays. And those meant to please the forefathers like the Shraddha ceremony. In all these ceremonies, large amounts of money are spent for various activities. But here it is suggested that if along with this there is recitation of the wonderful activities of Vamandeva. Certainly the ceremony will be carried out successfully and will be free of all discrepancies. Om Ganatimirandasya Gana Gana Salakaya Jagshushan Milatan Gena Tazanishi Gurave Namaha. So, what are people hearing? Everybody's hearing. Prabhupada says the birds are saying, "Where is worm? Where is worm?" And the people on Wall Street are saying, "Where is money? Where is money?" Everybody's hearing something. And that hearing has an effect. We should, what they say, garbage in, garbage out. All that's rattling around in your head. Somebody sent me a cartoon, and I'm very grateful for it. And it's a guy's obviously had an operation on his brain. If you yawn with your mouth open, it introduces ghosts. Yeah. And one of Lakshman's duties was to snap his fingers in front of Ram's mouth whenever he yawned, so nothing ill would affect him. So I just thought I'd mention that. In social circles, we don't yawn with our mouth open if we have Vedic culture. But anyway, this guy's had an operation, and the bandage is wrapped around his head, and the doctor's there. And the doctor's saying, "We found this inside your head." And it's one of those wind-up monkeys with the cymbals, bang, 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 bang. So we've got these things rattling around in our head. All these desires and aspirations and, I'm too fat, I'm too thin, I should take Botox, or, I'm a man, I wish I was a woman, I wish I was a man, or nowadays, what is it, third gender? People got all kinds of things banging around in their head. And it's seeded by, watered by. Seeded means planted like a seed from what we hear. So it should matter. And what we hear creates our aspirations, what we're desiring for, like I was just saying. So what about hearing the highest goal? What about something ennobling? There's a famous poem, and Prabhupada would quote poetry sometimes, and I think it's by T.S. Eliot, who probably nobody even remembers nowadays, but it's called The Hollow Man. And it ends, and it's talking about modern day culture. And it says, the last line is, how will the world end? Not with a bang, but with a whimper. More or less, we've been reduced. If I can just haul myself back and forth to Walmart and scrape, probably so many things. A pigeonhole in a skyscraper building. That's not how we're meant to live. I was listening to a tape the other day. A house should have the house, and there should be a courtyard with a wall, in front, a low wall, people can see over it. And you've got some orchard, you've got a few cows, you've got a little flower garden, you have a vegetable garden, there's a gate, That's a house, not a little pigeonhole in a skyscraper building. It's not the human life. And just to get by, we've talked about this before, the American dream, which is to pay off your house, put your kids through college, retire with a full pension and medical coverage. And it's the American dream. Why is it called American Dream other than Dravida? Nobody remembers. Govardhan remembers. Balaram remembers. Anybody else remember? Why you have to be asleep to believe it. It's not true anymore. So just to eke out a living, waiting for the wrecking ball to come through the window, So what about an ennobling life, which requires that we have noble aspirations to do good for others? And how do we develop those aspirations? What determines what our aspirations, what our goals are? Help me out here. It's right here in the verse. What we hear. So hearing, when they meet a devotee, it's so important because everybody's cruising along and you measure. Everybody's measuring. I don't care what they say. I mean, the homeless people, I got a cart. Well, I got a motorized cart. Well, I got a, you know, whatever. Everybody's measuring, comparing. What's my status? Prabhupada says there's always somebody higher, always somebody on the same level, and somebody with less. We're going to go a bit afield, but the materialists see these three categories. If they see someone who's in a subordinate, lesser, inferior position, Bhakti Joe, how does a materialistic person treat someone in a more misfortunate position than them, or a weaker position? Yeah, they're superior. They exploit. They take advantage of. They drive by her in their Mercedes and splash mud on their former classmate who's on the corner selling pencils. You know? What is it? It is not enough to be successful, but you have to see your enemies fail. And I'm sorry, but in Revelations, in the Bible, it's not enough that you're sitting on the right hand of God, but they can hear the people in hell. It says the gnashing of teeth and the wailing. Then you made it. I made it, and you're in hell. Ha, 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 ha. So that's how the materialist. Now, someone who's equal to them, what do? Other than Dravida. I mean, help me out. I mean, he's enthusiastic to glorify Krishna, so it's a good thing. But I want to make sure the rest of you are actually awake. So someone who's equal, what do? They compete. They're, who's going to get ahead, and, Prabhupada tells a story, it's a whole story, when Prabhupada transcendentally scammed the, Dynapan printing press in Japan, one of the largest printing companies in the world for printing Krishna book and Nectar Devotion. And Prabhupada had a whole thing he set up with Tamal. He told Tamal, I'm just going to tell it because it's blissful. He told Tamal to offer them this price. They're there. But the point I wanted to make, so we don't go too far afield, that everybody's there. Everybody puts their business card down, all the Dynapan execs. Prabhupada has his card, centers around the world. And Tamal had his card, Tamal Krishna Maharaj. So all the cards are there. And so Tamal, as Prabhupada's representative, this was their transcendental ploy, offers them a price. And it's just shocking. It's rock bottom. I mean, the Japanese execs are shocked. And Prabhupada turns to Tamal, who he told to offer that price, says, "Oh, no. They have to make some profit, and you can't, So then Prabhupada offers something in the middle, much lesser than the price they wanted, but not the rock bottom of Tamal. And they're so relieved that they've got a price that they might be able to live with, they took it. So Prabhupada said, I'm an old Calcutta boy. Prabhupada was sharp. So, but anyway, when they were hit with that, they all went out. The executives had to talk amongst themselves and splash some cold water on their face and figure out what they're going to do. So while they're out there, they left a minder, like a young exec, if they want any coffee or tea, or which of course we wouldn't want, but he wanted any water. He was just there to, while the execs were consulting. And he didn't speak much English. And Prabhupada asked this young exec, "What's your goal in life?" And he collected all the cards of the other Dynapon execs, and he ceremonially stacked them all up. And then he took his card out and put it on top. That was his goal in life. So they're envious. They're competing how to get to the top. That's how people at the same level. And those who were superior to us, pull them down. You're envious. Yeah, but so-and-so's a high court judge. Well, he must be working without a salary. Whatever. Try to find. Well, he's in a lower court. He's not in the, Supreme Court. Whatever it is. So that's a materialist. Exploit, take advantage of, compete, and be envious. Is that a nice world to live in? What do you think? You want that in your head? How does a Vaishnava see the world? Someone who's in a subordinate position? Misfortunate?
Mercy.
You're kind. You help them. Lift them up. Someone who's on the same level? How do you see them? Other than Ram, other than Dravida. Friendship. Who said friendship? Yeah. Yeah. Friendship. You make friends. And how about someone who's superior? You offer respect, you offer service. So we have a choice. We can live in a world where we're exploitative, we're envious, and we're competing, always full of tension and bad, Or we can live in a world where we're being merciful, we're making friends, we're offering respects, we're taking advice. Which world do we want to live in? So what we hear determines what our aspirations are. So when they meet devotees, what to speak of when they get the Bhagavatam, they meet a devotee and they don't know what it is. We had I think because I've got to head over to my office, we had we have every year a Ratha Yatra, the Festival of India, which we're changing the name back to the Hare Krishna Festival. After years of slipping on campuses, we've now got such a good reputation that we can go on campuses as the Hare Krishna Festival and get government grants. So, coming to a festival near you soon. At the Festival of India, now the Hare Krishna Festival, in Laguna Beach, I love to serve prasadam, so I was there in the prasadam. I just love to see people flowing past. And there were, it's right there on the beach. And there were two kids, maybe 12, 13 years old. And they're kids. Prabhupada said young boys are always hungry. So, hey, free food, looks good, smells good. They're in line. They're ready to go, I'll take two. So they're standing in. And all of a sudden, the mother swooped in out of nowhere. Said, "Don't touch that food." This is some years ago. Now they're much more. And now she's doing her. I said, you're their mother. You're doing your job. I don't want to get in between you and you. But can I ask you why? What's your concern or fear? She says, "I know what you put in that food." I said, "Help me out. What?" She said, you must put drugs in that. I said, "Why?" She said, "I know you people. You're monks. You get up early in the morning. You don't have any sex. You don't go to movies. And look at you. Look at you. You're all happy." And we scanned, the festival site. And the devotees are chanting and dancing or preaching to people or talking with their devotee. Everybody was happy. And she couldn't consider. I said, "Madam, did you ever think that we're happy because we don't do those things. And so, and she softened up, the kids took prasadam, it all has a happy ending. But, and I thought of something else which slipped my mind. So ennobling the human, it's possible a squirrel, a deer, a buffalo, a bear, they do the same thing. They call it instinct, but they, you never see, and I've used this example, I'm going to use it again. There's a bird, you may know the name of it. You see them in Mayapur, and they bend the palm trees or coconut leaves, and they make that teardrop-shaped house. Yeah, Ram's confirming, I'm not making it up. Do they ever say, every year a teardrop? I'm making I'm putting a porch on this year. I'm going Danish modern. They never do that. They make it the same way, the same day. Everything's the same. But the human form of life has freedom. We can ennoble ourselves. We can have higher aspirations. We can live in a world that we're not envious and competing and trying to drag down and exploit. We can live in a noble world, which is a happier world. And when they meet a devotee, they realize it's possible. Bhakti Raghava Maharaj, who preaches now in Indonesia mostly, he had a bad leg. You remember when he had the bad leg? And there was, it was caught when he was coming out of the womb or somehow. They used to call it a gimp or a game leg. I don't know what the politically correct is. He was stepping, challenged. He was, whatever it was. He had a bad leg. And when the Mayapur was attacked by some gundas, some thieves. Kids, don't try this at home. You can take a quarter stick of dynamite and pack nails around it, wrap it in tape, leave the fuse out. It makes a hand grenade. You light it and you throw it, and when it blows, those nails go everywhere. So the gundas thought, Tapta Kanchana Gaurange, Radhe Vrindavan, beautiful Srimati Radharani. They thought she was solid gold, effulgent. Actually, she's astatata, 8 different metals, and some gold is there. But they thought they'll steal Radharani, they'll melt her down, and get the gold. So they attacked the temple, and they threw one of these bombs. Jananivas, the great hero, ran and got the keys that unlock all the deity rooms and to the gate and threw them out into the rice fields to protect the deities. Anyway, they threw one of these bombs and it blew off Bhakti Raghava's leg below the knee. How did he respond? It used to cause me trouble and pain. I was thinking about having it removed anyway. That's how a devotee took it. I told the story about the Armenian devotee, how the devotee took it. So to have that kind of mentality, when devotees get hit hard, what do they... We've had this whole Vaman Leela, everything that Bali went through, everything that, Mother Aditi went through, they're the demigods, the devas. There's a common thread, and we'll end here. But and you only find, generally speaking, I've never heard anyone else say it. Devotees get hit hard. This world is a rough place. Bhagavatam, believe it or not, is compared to shoes. Now, shoes are unclean. Why is the Bhagavatam compared to shoes, other than Dravida and Balaram? Why do you need shoes? Just unpack the question. Why do we need shoes?
Walking through the pebbles and so on.
Okay, now Ram's out of the game too. When you walk on the road, there's sticks, there's thorns. It's hard to walk on the path, right? When you put shoes on, it's easy. So similarly, life, this is a rough place. Sorry, folks. But when you stop taking the anesthesia, what is a numbing agent, and you look around, this world is a rough place. My classic example is and you can do it. You don't have to trust me. You can pratyaksha, it's for evidence. You can do your own field study. You see a young kid. You say, how old are you? Say, let me guess. Always guess older. They're 8, guess 10. They're 10, guess 12, 13. How do they respond? What do you think? Huh? They like it. They smile. Especially if it's boys. But girls do it too. They stand up straight. No, I'm only, They all want to get older. Now, you meet an old geezer like me. You say, how old are you? Let me guess. What should you guess? Older? What do you guess? Oh, you guess younger. And same thing. They straighten up. They feel quite happy. It's almost like saying, oh, you must have lost weight. You look so much better. They like it. So I've done a study. They want to get older, all the way through teens. They want to get 21. They want to get 18. 16, you can drive. 18, you can drink. 21, you can vote. They want to get older. It stops around 30, maybe 33, 30. They don't want to get any older. Now, those that want to get younger, they want to get younger. When you look at it, there's really only between, let's say, 24 to 34. So there's 10 years. And even then, there's miseries caused by other living entities, by the mind, the body. Someone can get these folks a little prasadam. Oh, it's a parade. Anybody else out there? You can have a seat, or you can go up and take darshan, and they'll get you a little mahaprasad to take with you. So the point is, let's suppose someone lives 80 years. They're only happy, really comfortable in the body. Now, what to speak of the mind or miseries caused by others, so many other things muddying and mixing things up. But even just taking the body's physical condition, you're only happy 10 years at most. You live to 80, let's take it as an average. That means that, 1/8? I mean, 7/8 of your life, we're unhappy. Just by the body, without ever adding in all the other factors. So this is a miserable place. I'm sorry, but that's the truth. But when they meet a devotee, what to speak of, because we're talking about hearing the message of the Urukram, or the amazing personality of Godhead, no one does things like Krishna. So when we hear that, wait a minute, there's an alternative world. There's a place to put my love. Instead of loving a dog, what is it, Dorkadish wrote? And Prabhupada liked it. Instead of loving just a dog or a cat, he was 8 years old when he wrote this. Instead of loving just a dog or a cat, why not love Krishna, who made all of that? And Prabhupada liked it, So instead of putting our love and our time in futile, if you love Krishna, does that mean if I put my love at Krishna's lotus feet, my time, my attention, my focus, does that mean I ignore other people? That I become cold to other people? Does it mean, what do you think? No. When you love Krishna, you know how to love everyone perfectly. It says in the American Constitution, and you can pull me off the seat after I say this, so we'll end. In the American, what it is called, it is the cornerstone of American jurisprudence. the cornerstone of American democracy. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. I mean, actually, they're off right there. They minus 50% of human population by not mentioning women. But anyway, if you accept that all people, or even all men, are created equal, and that's the cornerstone of democracy. It's the golden rule: treat people as you'd be treated yourself. Let me ask you a question. Are people created equal? You see anybody? The only person who has a shot at having been created equal is Govardhan Prabhu. Why is that? Am I saying that because he's my disciple? What did you say? He has a twin. And even his mother can tell the difference. Can't she? Usually, the close relatives can tell the difference. But nobody's created equal. And are you guys twins? But you look a little different. I can tell the difference. But anyway, you have identical twins. I mean, they got a completely different personality. But in fact, if you're treated, if everyone's treated as a number, everyone's treated the same, do people like that? They say, don't treat me like a number, I'm an individual. The very essence of selfhood is that we're unique. So how is it possible that the founding fathers of America and the principle of democracy is that all people are created equal? And yet we look out, they're not all equal. Everybody's different financially, intellectually, emotionally, socially. So what links it all together? They have a common parent, Krishna. We're all servants of that. If you want brotherhood, you got a common father or a common mother. So when they meet a Vaishnava, this is my point, when they meet a devotee, they realize, wait a minute, there's another way to live. There is an alternative. And what to speak of when they get Bhagavatam, I don't have to live in a pigeonhole of a skyscraper building, eking out an envious and cold and impersonal life where I'm always jockeying for position and anxiety. Wait a minute. So, as it's talking here, the potency and value of Krishna Katha, what is it, the book Bhagavat and the personality Bhagavat. So when they meet a devotee, there's an alternative. When they read Bhagavatam, there's an alternative, and it's possible. Okay, we can end there. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. And we still went over time.